All right, everyone. So we're going to be reacting to IGN's Doom: The Dark Ages review. We've played about, I would say, 8, 9, maybe 10 hours of Doom: The Dark Ages so far, and I'm loving it. I really am. But I'm interested to see what kind of the reviews for this game are, because I haven't looked at any. Specifically, I wanted to play the game first before I looked at any of it. So now we're going to get into it and take a look. So we'll react, pause it, and show you guys.
If there's one thing that's kept the name Doom up near the top of the list of first person shooters, it's how it's always boldly reinventing being a badass, superpowered, one man army against the armies of hell. 3 decades ago, we got the original old school running guns, then a jump scare laden horror shooter, then a modern reimagining of that old school running gun, and then a mobility focused action shooter in 2020's Doom Eternal. The form that Doom: The Dark Ages takes on is actually one that is very different from Eternal, a game that I rank as one of my favorite shooters of all time. In fact, it's so
So I will say, I think that's a really good point. And I don't know what his take is gonna be on Doom Dark Ages, but I actually did feel that playing the game, right? It was one of those things where I can't really remember a game quite like Doom Dark Ages. It's just something that was so different from a lot of the stuff I've been playing recently, and it was kind of weird because it was very simplistic while also being or at least in my opinion, right? Maybe I stink, but very hard at the same time. Like, it was a simple concept to grasp what you had to do, and yet it was still kind of challenging to pull off, right? All these different enemies that were out there, and they all kind of have different ways that you should beat them, right? You can't tackle each one, in the same manner, and that was kind of cool, right? But you're doing it while you're fighting all of them at the same time in most cases, or you keeps building. Like, that's pretty cool, right? And I just can't remember, and obviously I haven't played every game that's come out, but I just can't quite remember a game doing that to this level in quite some time, where like I felt that way about it.
different that initially I was turned off by the heavier feel of the movement, the lack of a double jump or air dash, and the sheer chaos of having wide open fields with seemingly hundreds of enemies closing in on me from all sides.
That is, by the way, entirely true. Okay, this game, I was on low health and just battling and battling and battling the entire game. I mean, I haven't even beat it yet, but I'm just like, so far, it's been crazy. It's been absolutely crazy. This is not a game where, okay, we take out a few enemies. Every time you go to a new spot, you're fighting all of these guys at once, and it does feel never ending until it's just ended, right? But it does feel that way.
But a few hours into the 20+ hour campaign, my arsenal had expanded. The ways in which I could dispatch enemies had diversified, and I'd started to better understand and appreciate what Doom: The Dark Ages was and what it wasn't. By the end of it, I was left grinning like a Doom guy that just picked up a super shotgun as I ripped and tore until it was done.
So it looks like this is going to be overwhelmingly positive. It's interesting. He says like it took him a little while to kind of get into it. I didn't realize that. To me, right off the jump, I was like, "Oh, this is pretty cool." But clearly, and I didn't play much of the last one, so maybe that has something to do with it, right? Because we're expecting to get the last one, and it ended up not being that.
Doom: The Dark Ages campaign is all about setting up the dark sci-fi fantasy vibes. It follows our strong, mostly silent Doomslayer before he was awoken in a sarcophagus in a UAC space station back in Doom 2016. Of course, the Slayer himself isn't much more than just a vehicle for badassery, so it's not like we're seeing a new side of him or getting any sort of deeper look at this character's origins or motivations. Instead, the Dark Ages story is more about filling in the blanks in the Doom universe, diving into the history of the conflict between humans and demons, and further fleshing out both the faction of humanity defending Sentinels and the deity-like Makers.
Launch the Slayer.
Yeah, so I mean, Doom, the Slayer. I mean, it's kind of true. It's like, I don't really, and I got to read up once I beat the game on the Doom lore. It's one of those things I'm going to do after the fact and try to get, like, kind of look back and understand what I was actually playing through, because it's a little bit confusing for me. But it's interesting because, yeah, you just kind of feel like a badass. You don't really know much at all about who you are. You're just out there destroying everything, right?
And in that way, it's not only serviceable, but it also does a good job of taking us to both a wide variety of hellish landscapes that includes sci-fi themed medieval castles, and a very welcome trip to the Lovecraftian inspired cosmic realm, which features a ton of really cool mind-bending puzzles and creepy settings that are different from what we've seen before.
So this is interesting. I haven't gotten to a point where there's been too crazy of puzzles, so I wonder if that might be something that is coming, and I haven't played those yet. So to this point, I haven't seen it, but according to the reviewer, we are going to be seeing that. And yeah, the what I've seen so far from the actual places has been phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And they don't all feel the same. They're interesting. They're kind of crazy, and going around and trying to find the secrets in them. Actually, we could probably move this up to 1.5, right? Might as well. But going out there and being able to, do what you have to do in these settings is super cool. So I entirely agree with that.
Perhaps the best thing about the story is that it no longer feels like it's just the Slayer against the nameless forces of hell. There are human companions that are central to the plot.
Maybe he didn't survive.
It regularly feels like you're fighting alongside humanity in this giant all-out war against the demons, and there's actual intrigue involving the mysterious makers and their role in this whole conflict. This is the strongest a Doom story has ever been, even if that's not a bar
Actually, I might have sped that up a little bit too fast. Let's do this one.
you'd have to double jump over.
It's a big match and only the best.
Oh, we're getting an ad. We gotta wait for the ad.
Besides the setting, the big thing that separates Doom the Dark Ages from previous entries in the series is the addition of the Slayer's shield, and all the abilities that come with it.
So the shield is absolutely awesome, right? It's absolutely phenomenal. It's, so far at least, my favorite weapon. You could throw it, it's blocking, everything you could do with it, and they use it so well throughout the entire game. There is so much you could do with it.
Now, rather than being forced to avoid taking damage by constantly staying on the move and jumping around like a madman, you're often encouraged to charge straight forward into danger with your shield at the ready to either block or deflect enemy attacks. Any attack that is red can be blocked until your shield is depleted, and anything that's green can be reflected with a well-timed guard to not only deal substantial damage, but also stun most monsters it hits.
So this is one of the things I was talking about. Like, it's complex, or it's simple, but it's challenging, right? So that's a simple concept, right? Everything he just laid out, that's simple. Everybody knows, okay, we have a shield, it could do this. But pulling that off in the heat of battle, doing all that in the heat of battle is very hard. It's not easy, right? That's tough. So it's kind of that constant situation, which I prefer that. I really dislike a lot of games that make things super complicated, or, you got to do this to make something happen. And it's like, okay, the game's easy, but the mechanics are complicated. Whereas this game, no. It's a very tough game to play, but the mechanics are easy, right? I understand even how they do that, because I have like the tutorial setting on where it teaches you how to use each thing. Like if you go through a second playthrough, you can turn that off and not do that. But even the way they present new weapons, everything that's new, they don't do it like a normal tutorial, which would be, okay, we drop you down and you're just, we're going to walk you through it and then we throw you into the game. You're actually trying everything out in kind of real time while you're playing the game, while you're learning. And so it just kind of sticks with you better than a lot of how other games do it.
Even on Nightmare difficulty, which is what I did my playthrough on, the parry timing is very generous. But fortunately, you can fine-tune it however you like in the menus, along with a ton of other handy difficulty modifiers. The other key shield technique is a charging bash attack that can be
So I didn't make a lot of these changes that he's talking about. So that might be maybe, you can make it as easy or as hard as you want, which I think is a plus. Everybody being able to play the game how they want to. I think that's a good thing. So if you want this super hard challenge, you could do that, or the opposite.
used to quickly close the distance between you and your enemy. Think the Super Shotgun's grapple in Doom Eternal, only faster. You can use it with any weapon, and it's on a relatively quick cooldown. I know, fun, right? This combination of being able to use the shield both defensively to block and stun, and then offensively to quickly zip in and out is what really elevates the Dark Ages combat to the stratosphere by making it still feel very fast and exciting, even with the removal of things like double jumps, quick dashes, and fast weapon swaps. We get the best of
So once again, right? What is this showcasing for this game? If you're thinking about, oh, should I buy it? Should I not? Well, watch what's on the screen here, right? In terms of the gameplay, it's like it's a simple concept of you just very easily LT, RT, boom, you're moving around. But being able to do that while you're getting attacked from all sides and pull it off the combos correctly and everything, that's a challenge. So it's simple, but it's challenging.
both worlds, in that this Slayer is still extremely mobile, but also feels like a heavily armored tank thanks to loud footsteps and a devastating shockwave when you land from a high jump. The shield's utility doesn't end there either. Eventually, you'll also get the ability to toss the shield out, Captain America style, to instantly decapitate tons of fodder enemies all at once. Or, if you use it against larger enemies, it will continuously buzzsaw into them, keeping them incapacitated for a short while. This is an extremely useful skill, but I found it to be especially potent against the Arachnotron enemies that like to pepper me with a constant stream of non-reflectable bullets. If they're unarmored, I can just toss my shield to stop them from shooting, dash in, and all it takes is a single super shotgun blast to ready them for an execution. Those abilities are key to surviving tough fights because
See, very easy, right? I mean, it's a challenge, but once you learn, okay, this enemy, this is how I beat it. Boom, you got it. And if you can keep doing that, and while you're playing, if you could keep your mind about you, to be like, okay, this is what I have to do, even though you're getting attacked from all sides, it's really fun.
almost every enemy in Doom the Dark Ages has some sort of weakness like this, and unlike Doom Eternal, they are rarely weapon specific. There's no more switching to the combat shotgun specifically to pop a grenade into a Cacademon's mouth, then swapping to the rifle.
That is an interesting point from the reviewer here, right? It isn't as simple. A lot of games that will be the case, right? Where it's like this guy is armored in X way, so you use Y weapon. This is kind of different, right? This is maybe there's a different combination you're using, but it's not quite as weapon specific. So that makes it, I think, even more challenging because what you're doing is you're having to kind of think about it on the fly and maneuver yourself properly. Like you could take out the kind of the smaller mobs a lot easier, right? I'm calling them mobs. I don't know what they're the bad guys, right? You could take them out quite easier with just a shield, but then with some of the bigger guys, well, you got to use a combo of different things.
To snipe the guns off of a Revenant, then swapping between shots of your super shotgun and ballista to quickly burst down a Marauder or other big beefy enemy, etc. That's fun in its own way, and I'm sure there will be those out there, like myself, who still prefer it overall, but the Dark Ages still manages to find a way to be an absolute blast without requiring a StarCraft Pro's level of APM on the harder difficulties. The enemies are largely the same usual suspects that have been in most of the other Dooms. You've got your Imps, Hell Knights, Mancubi, and the aforementioned Arachnotron, and even the Cyber Demon, all of whom behave as you would expect. Others have gotten new facelifts to better match with the new setting, like the Pinky, who's now a mount with a Demon Archer riding him, and the new Cacodemon that hails from the Cosmic Realm. The Dark Ages even brings back the Vagary as a mini-boss who hasn't been seen since Doom 3. Overall, there's a nice variety.
So one of the things I'm noticing is, like I said, I played probably 10 hours so far, and some of these guys are showing, some of these enemies I haven't even seen yet. So that tells you the kind of depth that this game has. They introduce these weapons through. You don't start with everything. You kind of get them one by one. And so that it kind of keeps you going, and it keeps it exciting because you're using this new weapon every time. So that's interesting. I didn't know kind of the history because I haven't played the last game. So I didn't know the history of, I did buy it, but for whatever reason didn't play it. But the history of, okay, these have been in here before, which is, I think, something to keep note if you're someone who's going to get this game and has played it before.
In the enemies, and even those you've fought a million times before, have a few new tricks to make them fit better in the Dark Ages combat. Speaking of enemies, it's worth mentioning as well that it has exponentially jacked up the number of on-screen nasties relative to Doom or Eternal. When you get a bird's eye view of the battlefield, it truly looks like an all-out war against the minions of hell. This did lead to a bit of frustration for me early on, as I was often getting attacked from behind by enemies that would spawn in without warning, but all it took was some adjustment in how I approached certain combat encounters. I had to make sure that I was using my shield bash to disengage in addition to engaging to keep them off my back. One noteworthy
This is I have played like the original Dooms, like the really really old ones that are always talked about and cited. And one of the things, and I'm kind of remembering here, so it's not maybe a perfect explanation in a way because I'm not an expert in those games. But one of the things I will say is that if I remember it correctly, it's kind of more of a situation where, all right, you open a door and there's a few mobs in there, you take them out. In this game, it's never like that, almost never. Okay, from what I played so far, you are going through the level, and you go to a new area, and there is just a ton of people that spawn in that you got to take out. Happens on every mission all the time. There's very few times where it's, oh yeah, there's just a few guys in here. And I do think, if I remember correctly, because I haven't played them in a while, that's how those games were a little bit different in that sense.
The omission from the Dark Ages is the iconic chainsaw that has been used since Doom 2016 as a way to instantly kill a single enemy and regain ammo in the process. That has been replaced by an all-new melee system that lets you get up close and personal and engage in melee brawls that also restore your ammo. I do miss the satisfaction of sawing an imp or other small enemy in half, but this system works better for what Doom the Dark Ages is trying to achieve by again making you rush towards the fight rather than away from it. The ammo pickups for your melee attack are also much more plentiful than the gas or the chainsaw in either Doom 2016 or Eternal, making me run out of ammo far less, which was something that I very much appreciated.
I will say, having not played that other one, I think just from me watching, this system is way better than the other one. Because the problem is when you're kind of sawing like that, it just takes away a little bit from what this game is going for, which is kind of never-ending combat. You just keep going, you keep fighting, move from one to the other. And if you're going to be using the chainsaw for that versus how it's used in this, I think this is way better having it on the shield.
There were two guys. Neither guy wore their seatbelt.
Oh God,
one
we're
guy
getting
got a
ads
ticket.
again.
One guy didn't. Two guys drove home from work. One guy wore his seatbelt. One guy didn't. One guy made it home. One guy didn't.
A 30-second ad, no skip.
Lisa, how are you going that?
Okay.
As far as the actual weapons go, the Dark Ages plays around a lot with the look of each weapon to give it an old-timey flavor, but the functions are generally all the same as what we've come to know and love from the series. All of the satisfyingly punchy stalwarts are accounted for. The combat and super shotguns, an assault rifle that shoots out rail spikes instead of bullets, a plasma rifle, and a long-range single-shot weapon in the form of a satisfying steel ball launcher called the Steel Shot, just to name a handful. The only really unique weapon of the bunch is the Skull Crusher Pulverizer, which sort of behaves like the chain gun, but has a ridiculous spread that can just absolutely shred a football's field worth of fodder enemies. It's a fun weapon that goes great with the Dark Ages' absolutely insane amount of on-screen enemies at once, even though I typically opted to use the shield throw to mow down the hordes of fodder, since there's an upgrade that powers up the shield charge when you do. One interesting...
So, I've played, like I said, probably, around the 10 hours, and I haven't even seen all these weapons. I've seen the vast majority of these that he's shown so far, but I haven't even seen all of these. So that tells you the kind of depth that they have new stuff that's not just in a different mission.
Twist for how the Dark Ages handles its arsenal is that just about every gun has a sister weapon that uses the same ammo type and can be hot swapped between with the press of a button. So, for example, along with a rocket launcher, there's a grenade launcher. In addition to the aforementioned pulverizer that does a little bit of damage spread out over a wide area, there's a Ravager that concentrates the fire to hit single enemies. It all adds up to a ton of variety in the gunplay, and while I was never forced to swap between my weapons in the same way that I was in Doom Eternal, I still found myself jumping from gun to gun simply because it's fun. But the absolute best part about the toolbox in the Dark Ages is, and this is a credit to the weapon designers at id because this is true for just about every Doom game, that every gun retains its usefulness throughout the entire game. Sure, I might have my favorites and gravitate more towards the Super Shotgun, Rocket Launcher, and Steel Shot, but even the early weapons stay relevant once you get some upgrades into them. If I'm low on armor, I can swap to the Combat Shotgun that I upgraded to ignite enemies and make them drop armor shards. If I need health, I can swap to the Ravager to make them bleed health pickups. And if I need to incapacitate an enemy while also dealing damage to others nearby, I can throw my shield into a baddie, shoot the shield, and watch as my bullets ricochet and hit everyone else around. To sweeten the pot...
So you're kind of seeing it with the complex kind of strategies you can actually have in this game, while also it being very simple, just go out there and, kill everybody, right? That's basically it, yet it's still very, very simple.
All of these abilities and weapons are sprinkled at a measured pace throughout the campaign. There was never even a chance for the gunplay to get stale because every level would give me a new gun, or a new ability for my shield, or a new melee weapon, or I'd find enough gold to afford a new upgrade at the shop that would alter something I already had in a way that made me want to use it more. And it's this need to upgrade that fed into my desire to explore and find both upgrade currencies and the more traditional Doom collectibles like figurines, weapon skins, and lore pickups. Appropriately, the levels of the Dark Ages welcome that exploration with open arms. While they all vary in size, the smaller stages are still big by the series standards, and the big levels are gigantic. They're huge, open battlefields with tons of secrets, challenging enemy encounters, and more than a few breathtaking vistas.
Don't upload your videos to YouTube. Upload to Restream, where we will live stream it to YouTube.
Breaking up all the running and gunning are giant mecha battles and flying sections where you pilot the Slayer's dragon. Yes, the Doomslayer has a dragon, because why not? These sections are shallow compared to the rest of the Dark Ages, with the mecha sections amounting to little more than a simple game of dodge, punch, punch, dodge, punch, punch. And the dragon bits are little more than dodge, shoot, shoot, dodge, shoot, shoot. That said, they're kind of like a turret sequence in that they're infrequent and brief enough to never drag the pacing down, and they at least provide cool moments in the cutscenes that precede and follow them. And then there's the soundtrack. Holy hell. If you've played a Doom game before, you probably know what to expect going in, but even so, I was gleefully into it. It's another banger of a heavy metal soundtrack that had me coming back to certain levels after beating the campaign and just turning down all the volume except for the music so I could listen without it being overpowered by the sounds of shotgun blasts, explosions, and dying demons.
Entirely true, right? Entirely the case. Soundtrack's great. Map design is great. The breakup of the different level types, which I've already seen 3 types, which is kind of the normal one. You have the one where you're in that big suit. I don't know, I forget the name of it now, and then the one on the dragon.
Far from just being more Doom, Doom the Dark Ages is a new flavor of the legendary shooter series that's heavier and more grounded, but no less energetic and exhilarating. The new shield is an outstanding addition that adds a ton of both offensive and defensive options, and when combined with the extensive arsenal of traditional Doom guns, provides a ton of fun and exciting ways to dispatch the hundreds upon thousands of demons that stand in your way. Add on top of that another pumped up heavy metal soundtrack backing the excellent weapon, level, and enemy design, and it has once again proven that like a super shotgun blast from point blank range, they don't miss.
So I think an 8 is probably about right. I mean, it probably could have been even higher, right? I don't know. And I don't even know. So what's the rest of this? Oh, are they just going further into it? Okay, well, we don't need to watch all that. We'll just stop it right there. But you just kind of look at it from the standpoint of this is a really fun game, and it's knows what it is. You know, I think sometimes, especially games nowadays, they're like, they try to do everything. They try to do everything, appeal to everyone. This game knows exactly what it is. And so if you like it, you're going to like it. And if you don't, you might not. But I just had I had a ton of fun playing this game. And I'm going to be beating it. You know, there's no question about it. I'm also interested. I don't know yet how this goes, but I'm also interested to see the replayability on this after I beat it. You know, what is the replayability like? I'm super, super interested to see that. And I can't speak to that. He didn't really speak to it too much in here, but I would love to see what happens with that. So thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time.